Today's episode is one of the greatest finishes to any cricket match, let alone a T20 match. Very rarely can you describe a game of cricket with just one sentence. The 2019 World Cup, the barest of margins, is the only other one I can think of. This week's episode is simply remember the name.
Karlos Braitwaite! Karlos Braitwaite! Remember the name! History for the West Indies!
Oh, that is brilliant. It's a hero maximum. On the ground, down the ground, another hero maximum.
Welcome back to the Maximum Cricket Podcast. My name is Munter and we are joined by Jacko. Today is the fifth and final instalment of the 5 most impactful games of T20 International Cricket of all time. In a bid to gain some momentum and fizz for the T20 World Cup that starts in June, we have rewatched and reviewed the following classic matches. The second T20 between Australia and New Zealand in 2010, where Brendan McCullum made the scoop famous. The World Cup group stage game between India and Pakistan in front of 90,000 fans at the MCG in 2022. The first World Cup final between India and Pakistan in 2007, where the IPL was unofficially launched. And last week was the very first T20 International between Australia and New Zealand in 2005, which launched the platform of atmosphere and what the game looks like today. If they sound like something you might enjoy, please do go back and watch those episodes. Chuck it a like, a subscribe, and join the ride we are trying to take you on down nostalgia lane. Today's episode is one of the greatest finishes to any cricket match, let alone a T20 match. Very rarely can you describe a game of cricket with just one sentence. The 2019 World Cup, the barest of margins, is the only other one I can think of. This week's episode is simply remember the name. That is right, it is the 2016 World Cup final between England and West Indies, where DJ Bravo's song Champion got some use as the West Indies became the first nation to win a T20 World Cup twice, beating England in crazy circumstances where Karlos Braitwaite hit Ben Stokes for 4 sixes in a row in the final over to cap off a memorable game. England batted first. They made 155 for 9. Joe Root top scored with 54 off 36. Braithwaite again in the game, 3 for 23 off 4. In reply, the Windies chased it down with 2 balls to spare, 4 wickets in hand. Marlon Samuels, 85 red off 66. And Braithwaite, that man again, ended up 34 not out off 10 balls after coming in at 107 for 6 with 27 balls left. Jacko, 2016 set the table for me. What was happening in the year 2016 for yourself and in the world? And what do you remember about this game?
I think 2016 I was a bit older than some of these other games we've been talking through. I think I was just mincing about in Dunedin, to be fair. Or you sort of was just about to move back up to Christchurch.
A lot of beers around.
I was definitely sort of very deep in living in Dunedin, actually, sort of your Smith Street days and whatnot. So fair amount of refreshments were had, sort of, just playing cricket, working whatever job, and sort of living the uni life, but not at uni and working. So, maybe we'll ask for those years back later on, but I had a hell of a time, that's for sure.
Yeah, 2016, I believe, was the year of the famous or infamous bender from myself, which we probably won't disclose too much involved, but it did involve winning a trophy, which I enjoyed tremendously. And I imagine DJ Bravo Champion was played a few times around the trap. So a very eventful year for us in our younger years. It was the start of the England white ball reset. And DJ Bravo Champion just lived rent free in my head. Still does sometimes. Takes me right back when I hear it. Could not ask for better publicity than winning World Cup.
It just reset a culture, really, in terms of your changing room song after a win. I think for years it was probably always like Queen, we are the champions. But I think in cricket circles, I think you wouldn't find many teams that would put Queen on before DJ Bravo jump on these days.
That's a good take. That's a good take. It might be the new number one. It'd be interesting to know what the number one champion song is nowadays. If it is still DJ Bravo, find out. Actually, you did win a couple of trophies recently. What did
You got on pretty quick. Yeah,
yeah.
It was sort of the team song, and then that came on pretty quick. It came on before the Queen iteration, so I think definitely in cricket circles, there was a hard reset for the celebration song. A DJ Bravo champion has really been in the mix the last few years, which I'm very thankful for. But yeah, more times you hear it, the better.
100%. 100%. You got anything else to add on the year of 2016, or do you want to roll into some categories?
I think we might need a Patreon exclusive episode if we really want to sort of delve into the ins and outs of that time, I think.
Yeah. Patreon
that needs
exclusive.
to be behind a paywall, I imagine.
Definitely behind a paywall if you want to hear from Munter's Bender. That's for sure. Onto the categories. We'll start off with the Bradman Award for the best stat of the game. I've got 3 here. The West Indies became the first team to win two T20 World Cups in 2016. In the year 2016, the West Indies won the Men's T20 World Cup, the Women's T20 World Cup, and the Under-19s World Cup, which is quite dominant, and I did not remember that at all. And the final stat is Darren Sammy made 8 runs the whole tournament. He bowled 3 overs, and in 3 games he didn't bat or bowl, yet he is a double World Cup winning captain. That is incredible, and I don't think we'll ever see that again.
That's like, you can have thanks for Cummings for like a game, but to have one pretty much for a tournament is quite astonishing.
And he's skipper.
Yeah, and he's captain. So, that's quite an achievement. The West Indies, the white ball stuff, the trophies is an interesting one you bring up, because I remember seeing a list it must have been before the last One Day World Cup, of the order of teams that had won ICC like trophies, and they were second equal with India on the most white ball trophies, which is quite astounding for like a small nation who is genuinely either horrific or like the best. So like for someone like us who, we're semi-final or thereabouts, we've won sort of one Champions Trophy, no actual World Cups, and they're right up there in terms of total amount of trophies. So I always find that very interesting, because they're not a team you'd pick as a powerhouse.
No. They're a high ceiling, low floor sort of nation.
Well, very like, I mean, low floor. They didn't make the last World Cup, and ceiling is trophies.
That's the scary thing. Like, they didn't make the last World Cup, but I'm looking at this World Cup. I look at their side. I'm like, could make some noise. Like, could make some noise. Like, there's no one out, no other nation that you would think that.
No, not at all. I think that Darren Sammy's tournament stats, that's unbelievable. You'll never see that again.
No, I mean, in terms of like the stat, that is the outrageous stat, one of the most outrageous stats you'll ever see. But I think you can't tell the story of T20 cricket without the West Indies. Like, they've got so many players that are sort of have shaped the game, like your Gales, your Braithwaites, your Nareens, your DJ Bravos, your Andre Russells, like all timers, just sort of. Yeah. And I think that sort of 2012 to 2016 era, they sort of reshaped the game, where they really started to hit bombs. I think like Gale sort of led that charge, where he was like, he'd happily block out 3 dots and just hit a bomb because they had that power. Like, it was sort of like they sort of started a revolution. So I'd like to, I think for me, like 2016, it was summed up best by the West Indies.
Yeah, I think as well, like probably outside of the IPL, the West Indies, maybe you could say, had the most contribution to T20 and making it sort of popular. Because because you look at those players and you look at their performances in those sort of franchise leagues, like they're just superstars, they're entertainers. Some very infamous stories that's probably behind another paywall, sort of the Caribbean League and your Chris Gale sort of event. Yeah, yeah. But I think as a nation, the West Indies just like the way they play their cricket is so perfectly suited to T20 cricket, and then for them to just be sort of deposited in these leagues and be great entertainers, I think really probably played into T20 success, and it probably shows why they either go really good or really bad, because they come together and it either works or it doesn't, and there's not really an in between. But you'd struggle to find a cricket fan who doesn't want the West Indies to be good. Like, it's like the Lakers and the Celtics. The NBA is good if the Lakers and the Celtics are going well. Like, everyone loves their own teams, but there's always teams in the world that if they're going real good, the sport's in a good place. And I think the West Indies going well in white ball cricket is that for white ball cricket.
Yeah, well said. Well said. The Glenn McGrath 2005 Ashes Award for the turning point of the game. I've got Joe Root taking 2 wickets in his first over. He opened the bowling spin. That was quite the event. Braithwaite's first 6 in that last over, like I think needing 19 off the last over. That first 6 just sort of terrible delivery from Stokes.
Faith. Yeah.
Just gets a bit of doubt in the bowler's head, bit of faith. That sort of kick-started things. Marlon Samuels, I think he was given out on 27, but upon further review, they reckon it didn't carry to the keeper. The score would have been 37 for 4 off 6, so that's a big turning moment. He obviously ended up making 80-odd red. Bravo was dropped on 11 by Billings at deep square. Score would have been 69 for 4 off 12. Obviously, he ended up making 30-odd, so that was quite a big partnership. There's a few big good ones there, but I just think it's Braithwaite game. That first 6, that was really like, hang on, here we go here.
I think as well, some dismissals not going your way, probably where I normally lean to with this, but I think if you're the batting team and you are chasing 19 off the last, or the other way around and you're the bowling team, you're defending it, the batting team's thinking how do we get, 4 or 5, how do we get this down to 3 shots off 3 balls? How do we get a miracle? And the bowling team's probably thinking that as well. How do I just go 1s and 2s for the first couple, and then I can relax a bit? And with one sort of shot to go to 13 off 5, that's a huge difference to the 19 off 6. And the 6 is such a momentum killer. Bowlers make a lot of you can make a lot of mistakes at the death and get away with them, but to sort of make one and see it go over the picket fence, that's sort of like a Braithwaite now is like, I'm on and I can chase this, because really he's 2 shots away from getting the job done. And Stokes is thinking, holy fuck, we're shit, I'm going to have to do some real work here. Because at 19 off the last, he was probably thinking just get a couple of good balls in there and we've won the World Cup. And Braithwaite was probably the old.
Braithwaite only faced 10 balls, so he'd only faced 6 balls before that first ball. So he would have only been on 10, so 10 off 6. 30. So he'd really, so he'd really sort of he hadn't really seen him at all. So just to feel one out of the fat over the rope, that's a big thing for a big ball striker like Braithwaite. Yeah.
And I think it just gave him that belief of we can do this. I can swing for the fences. I've only got to get 2 more clean, and we're done. So it's got to be that. I think it was. I'd love to see the win probability chart. That seems to be very popular, sort of in NBA finals and whatnot at the moment. But I think it would have been hovering in the 80s, going it with 6 balls to go. And I'd love to see what the drop was after that 6, because it would have been, I'd say, it would have been a substantial drop, I believe.
Great. Congratulations, Carlos. That'll be the first of many awards you'll win tonight, no doubt. The Andy Mackay Award for I forgot he played this game. I've got two. Obviously, I mentioned it before. Joe Root opening the bowling just took me by surprise. I just wasn't quite prepared for that. This was a bit of an era of not everyone opened with a spinner. I think like as Badri opened for the West Indies, and I think I want to say Santner opened the bowling a little bit for New Zealand that sort of time, and maybe a few others. Also, Solomon Ben was a bit of a throwback because I didn't realize this was his era. Like I remember him from like the late 2000s. You know, I remember him sort of like crossing over with that era from last week with the 2005 Black Cap side. Like I feel like he was around. He was around with like when that super over, and I just remember always being infuriated by how he can't bowl quick. He's so massive.
It's Solomon Ben's an interesting one because I can vividly remember him as a player in a frame, but I couldn't tell you any game he played in.
Now you can.
Yeah, like now I can, and I'll probably have forgotten it in a week's time. But yeah, it definitely feels like Solomon Ben for me because he is that player that you go like. I do remember his Test debut, and it was like whites were, looked like the I Love Ugly crop pants, like up above his ankles. He was a huge frame and just boldly like these dobbly offies, and it was like, what are we doing here? Like maybe the biggest waste of a frame out of the West Indies because he should have been running in bowling 155 plus, like up around your ears all the time. But yeah, definitely feels like Solomon. Yeah, it's huge. Be a good player to be wing actually at that sort of size.
Yeah, if he could shoot, got a big wingspan. The Sixers could
get some boards. Yeah. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole this week.
No, we do not. That's another paywall sort of operation. That one.
That's a helpline sort of operation. But your Wolves are going. I think
they are, and they will be mentioned at some point. So we've spoken about this off air through Messenger, but nothing gets the punters more riled up than a tall guy that can't bowl fast.
Oh,
like
100%.
Can't explain it.
Yeah, I remember Solomon Ben's debut. I can't remember who was commentating, but I do have like a vivid memory of them talking about seeing him at and I don't know where he played. Like, it was a Trinidad and Tobago or a Jamaica training or whichever one of the islands he's from. And I think this guy was a coach or a player, and he saw him walk up and he went, "You fucking beauty. Like, here's another one off the production line." And he like marked his run up at like 5 steps and bowled off spin, and he couldn't have been more gutted. So yeah, you see a big frame like that, and you lick your lips thinking, "Here's a big nasty," and just bowled offies, but definitely sort of the player I'd forgotten about.
Yeah, congrats, Solomon. The Brendan McCullum 2010 scoop shot of the game. I've got 4 nominations, 3 from one player. Samuels 6, straight back down the ground off Plunkett in the 16th over. Braithwaite hitting a scoop shot. Don't remember this shot at all, but it took me by surprise. I think it was one of his first 1 or 2 balls. Off Willie, hit one for 4 or 6. The second 6 off Stokes, I thought was just impressive amount of strength. Like, I didn't think the first 6 was a terrible delivery from Stokes. Like, it was, I think 95% of world cricket, 95% of world cricket would have put that away. But the second one was, honestly, he missed that Yorker by like an inch, and he muscled it about 100 meters plus. And that was almost game right there. And I've also got the last 6, I think, just for like, that's the one that gets played all the time. Wasn't the hardest, like, was probably in the hit me zone, but like, still, it's memorable.
Yeah, I think any from that last over, definitely right up there. But yeah, I think anything that's close to getting a Yorker out of the screws, as tough as it is, and hitting at 100 meters is definitely up there in terms of difficulty and shots you like to see. So I'd try to go past that. Hate to circle back to the Andy Mackay Award, but Liam Plunkett's a player I quite often forget exists. For someone that's got a pretty good cricket career and he's played actually quite a bit for England, if you asked me to list, the last 100 people to play for England, I'd struggle to come up with his name. But
quite important.
I still think it's Solomon Ben. But Liam Plunkett, just a weird sort of name you always forget about, and he's always sniffing around in England setup.
Underratedly good looking too. Just has
good beard,
rugged
strong beard.
Rugged sort of good looks sort of operation.
Yeah.
Okay, righto. The Woodworm Award for the best piece of kit for that year. 2016, not too far removed, although what are we, 8 years? Starting to get up there actually. Don't know if kit's changed too much since then. No. I've only got a couple of nominations. I had the West Indies kit, just real simple, lovely shade of maroon. They've always got good kits, but this was just really simple. I liked the thick yellow collar. I thought it stood out, and I think it was a good shade, and it was just enough gold to really stand out. And all the kits just fit perfectly. Maybe it was just the way that they fitted around the big strapping lads, but just a massive fan of that kit. And my only other one here, I've got SG bats. I felt there was a lot of SG bats floating around in that sort of era. That was something that sort of took me back a wee bit. Don't quite see them as often as you did back then. Anything else here, Jacko?
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Because I feel like that's when a lot of kits transition back from getting a bit silly. Just sort of during that period. The cap started to get some pretty exceptional, just straight black, white collar stuff started to come through. But the West Indies for me very similar to like a Sri Lanka or a Bangladesh, where they've got good colours and they don't really overdo it and they don't muck it up. Sorry, not Bangladesh, Pakistan. But they've got maroon and gold just works, and the West Indies often don't overcomplicate it and get it wrong. To pair a great cap with a winning campaign, you can't ask for much more. It embeds it in your memory, sort of thing. So the SG bats, you're right, sort of felt like their moment, that sort of era. But yeah, championship Wendy's kit, tough to beat with that colour scheme. Very similar to my Burnside too.
That makes sense.
Beautiful.
What's aged the worst? I've got two nominations here. David Willey doing the champion dance, ironically, when he got Sammy caught in the deep. At the time, West Indies were 107 for 6. They needed 49 off 27. Braithwaite being the next man in, and obviously we know what happened next. So that really aged very poorly, because he's sort of he's sort of doing that. Definitely poked the bear. And having Stokes bowl that last over, probably haven't really discussed that, because that was a very poor last over. Definitely looking back, not great. But I just can't get over that. I forgot. I didn't remember that happening. And then I watched it and I was like, oh my God, what are you doing? How bad does it look? Because you watch the first innings and you've got every wicket, the West Indies are doing the dance, and it's funny. It's that's their thing. That's their guy. Every song they're playing it, and then you got David Willey doing it, and I'm like, wow, that looks shit. That's what I look like. That looks terrible. That looks bad. It looks bad because you're obviously you're obviously making fun of the opposition, which is not a great move. Particularly if you end up losing said matchup.
And it's all about history, isn't it? It's all about the end result. England win that, we don't even speak about it. Wiley probably does the DJ Bravo champion dance a million times on the podium. It's like, I look like a bit of a dick, but they won. So, fair enough. But to carry on like that, mid game in T20 cricket, which we know is so fickle. It's tough. It's tough to come back from that. It's tough to be interesting to see what his career stats were pre and post that. Just to compare.
It will come up on Apex Mountain.
Okay. Well, there you go. Sneak preview for later. In terms of Stokes bowling, like, I don't know what we know now of Stokes, like sort of the player he's become, and like the moments he's had. If you knew that about him internally before this game, I've got no problem with you giving him the over, because he is turns out to be such a competitor. He's such a winner. But yeah, at the time, I think he was pretty unproven as a death bowling option. But yeah, like, I don't know. There's something about the English and their all-rounders, like their Flintoffs and whatnot. Like, they just see them as their guys, their game winners. So, do you want the ball in your game winner's hand? Yes. Do you think he gets it for 4 sixes in a row? Probably not. But yeah, I mean, Stokes at his peak. Tough to, easy in hindsight, we'll say, to critique that one.
Yeah.
But Willie's just that's no good. You've got to keep that away till you've won.
100%. Yeah, behind the change rooms sort of thing. It's interesting you brought up that Stokes, because I had him for unanswerable questions, so we might as well bring that up now. And I said, like, is Stokes still the same player now if this doesn't happen to him? Like, it's almost like your LeBron 2011 finals meltdown sort of thing. Like, it's sort of like he talked about that making him the player he was. And you made a good point where you talked about how, if you looked at that game just in a vacuum, you could say, oh, well, having Stokes bowl that last over was perhaps a mistake. But knowing what he's done since that point and how well he's done under pressure, it's funny looking back. You still don't look at it going, I can't believe he bowled Stokes. You just think like, oh, it's another day he would have stood up, or he would have, it's strange to look at him and not pull that one out, because pretty much ever since that point, when push comes to shove, he stood up. Like 2019, Ashes, World Cup, Ashes 100%. Last year. Like, it's just, the list goes on. He sort of stands up when it matters, so it's strange to see him not do that.
Yeah, and as I sort of tried to say, like, if, like, internally, like, guys that have played with him for years, and I think his doco, when it came out, went into it a little bit and sort of just explained how he was always that sort of competitor and stuff. So, like, if you've got a guy like that in your change rooms and he's a guy like that, you probably want him to be the one with the ball. But yeah, you're right. In terms of, does that turn Ben Stokes into the player he is, it is unanswerable, because you don't know. Like, if he wins that, then is that just another feather to the cap in terms of what we're talking about?
Does he need that rock bottom?
Yeah, exactly. But like, if he wins that, does that list just include that? Like, but as you say, like, if it does happen, does he ever like develop and want to get past that feeling? So yeah, it's tough to know if he'd won that, whether he would have just kept adding accolades, or if he'd gotten a bit stale because it was sort of reaching that peak early before having that real, like, that bitterness. And then if that came after winning, would he then be like, oh, well, we've won one, so it's all good? So yeah, I think there's a lot to look into in that sort of intense failure and then how guys respond. And looking back now, Stokes is probably, you'd struggle to say it didn't make him the player he is, I think, looking back on it.
As I say, sometimes you got to lose one to win one.
All set.
Apex Mountain. Got a few options here. I don't have the stats for Willie, but I reckon that point of the Champions dance was his Apex Mountain, because at that point he had figures of 3 for 6 off 2.3 in a World Cup final. So that was just at that point. So his figures ended up 3 for 20. So he conceded
Still well bowled.
another 4. Yeah, like good figures in the end, but they ended up being 3 for 20, so 14 off the next.
14 for
sort of
none off 9 balls. Yeah.
And then from
Dropped
there,
off.
not long after this, probably a couple years later, was the emergence of Jofra Archer. And Jofra Archer then took David Willey's spot in the World Cup squad that won it in 2019. So it was sort of like karma feels strong, but it felt like there was a little bit of momentum the other direction on Willie because of that moment.
Yeah.
Perhaps, I don't know. Just a theory. Other notable nominations, Karlos Braithwaite. We could probably name this award the Karlos Braithwaite Apex Mountain Award. I don't think there's no person has ever had an incredible amount of peak than that. Like, because I mean, Karlos, he's not even playing now anymore, and he didn't really do like his stats aren't that great, but this one peak is incredible. Joe Root playing T20 cricket, like he was taking wickets, he was top scoring. Doesn't play T20s, didn't play T20s not long afterwards. DJ Bravo, the artist, definitely sort of sold a lot of records around that point. West Indies cricket, Darren Sammy and Marlon Samuels. So, I think they all are Apex Mountains. It's just which is the peak of the peaks. I'm probably looking at Karlos, but what are you thinking?
Yeah. It's I suppose the West Indies they even flow in terms of eras because you could say, the Ambrose sort of the big nasties, the bodyline stuff that could be the Apex Mountain for West Indies cricket
Probably
because
is.
like it's just so notorious. Your Sammys. They just have these runs, and it's like, okay, you got to sort of pick which one's the best. But I think Braithwaite, that result's unbelievable, and he'll forever be remembered for sort of one moment. A lot of the other guys, there's some other stuff you probably would bring to mind, and some other leagues they've played in, and stuff like that. I think the only really challenger for Braithwaite is DJ Bravo, the artiste, because if that song didn't have the legs it's still got, I'd probably have to say it was DJ Bravo champion. But I think the fact that it's sort of hanging around and it's still got some legs probably just sort of just eases that descent a little bit, and pushes Braithwaite's mountain to just that little bit steeper, and gets him over the line, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way to sort of sum up this game. It's the Karlos Braithwaite game. It's the DJ Bravo champion game. And that's why they are the Apex Mountains of this game. Anything else you want to touch on there, Jacko, before we wrap up?
No, just another, the barest of margins, just another great piece of commentary. I'd love to do a sort of, some sort of, Mount Rushmore or top 5 all time, like commentating and game pairings. Because I think that sort of barest of margins in this one, in terms of how good the game was and how well it was sort of spoken. Our boy Smitty, our great Smitty, he's got so many as well. But just some peak commentary to go with a peak game, and when you get that joined up, it elevates things so much. So thought that needed a little bit of a mention there at the end.
I agree with that. Iconic commentary, and that's a great video idea. We'll do a ranking system of top tier commentary lines. But for now, that is us for the series, actually. Before we move on to some T20 World Cup action, we've got a preview coming up. We've obviously got the actual World Cup. We've got a few shows lined up for that. So hope you enjoy this trip down memory lane. We sure did. So thank you all for listening and watching on the YouTube. Please do like and subscribe and join us for this ride. And thank you, Jacko.
Thanks, mate.